gonna be tempting.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff to get through.
Yeah, we'll start.
Yeah. Okay. Hello. There's a Devilman in your cereal. So we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff that has Devilman in it. So right off the bat, we're going to say that we have some content warnings. If you've read Devilman, it's probably nothing that's going to shock you. Yeah, it's going to be anime, cartoon depictions of gore, dismemberment, and nudity, and things of that nature. So, and also, a spoiler warning for Devilman and Neon Genesis Evangelion. We're going to have a second spoiler warning where we're going to get into a lot of other stuff, but for now, those are the only two major ones. And please feel free to exit the room at any time if you don't want to get spoiled or if you don't want to look at the pictures. So here's a quick intro about us. We can go first.
I'm Michael, I'm 26, I study Japanese fourth year. I am insane, I came here from Canada in the current political climate in this. We've had brainworms on this topic for like 7 years now, so we hope this goes well.
Hello, I am Hida. I'm 29. I am a journalist, or work in the communication field. I am very annoying about literature and that sort of nature, and I almost considered being an English major. So I didn't. And then I almost became a history major, and then I became a journalism major. So I think that should say a lot about me. I make funny video essays on YouTube.
Hello, my name is Mikhail. I'm 26. I'm a chemist and a sociologist. I really like writing, and I play Final Fantasy 13 too much. And I also do art sometimes, and I did all the art for all the original art for this panel. So, yeah.
Also, before we get into it, we will be giving you guys a link to the slides and like an account that we're going to be like uploading a video to of any of this. So if we go through anything too fast, don't worry about it.
We have a lot of stuff to get through.
We have a lot. So much shit. We have
a lot.
Over 180 slides.
Let's go.
Oh, me or yeah. So Devilman is a shounen manga written by Kyoshi Nagai, which is serialized in weekly shounen magazine from June 11 to like 1972, June 2nd, 1973. Devilman is considered one of the most influential manga of all time, shaped the face of the entire shonen genre, and this also extends to seinen and JoJo.
I love cute little pictures of mangaka at their desks from like 50 years ago. So a lot of the stuff that we talk about in this early like history of Go Nagai comes from his manga Devilman, which is a fictionalized account of his experience creating Devilman. So he uses a lot of gag names for things to avoid talking about them directly. The most important one is that he uses a pun for Shonen magazine where he calls it directly translates to Shonen Manga Man. But we have translated it.
So like,
so we translated it as Shonen Magazine to keep the pun but also make it make sense in English.
In January of 1971, Nagai released a manga called Maudante, which would become the basis for Devilman. Due to the fact that the magazine it was being published in was discontinued, Toei Animation believed that this would be a great chance for an anime. And he was then told that he could make the manga however he wanted, and also had to provide designs for the demons in the anime, and the anime is just a lot different, and it's geared more towards children. We will only be focusing on the manga specifically.
And then at the same,
so around the same time, two popular manga, like Ashita no Joe and Star of the Giants, which were very influential in driving drama within shonen and also drew in a more adult audience, which also led to the creation of seinen, which Devilman also later influenced with Violence Jack. So there were no series in the style that lined up to take place once Ashita no Joe and Star of the Giants were ending, and Nagai pitched Devilman to Weekly Shonen magazine, and surprisingly they picked it up, letting him do whatever he wanted. I mean, there's some caveats, you know, if you're familiar with the fact of one scene that he was almost put in the manga and then was told to cut out. So it also drew in a lot of similar with Ashita no Joe and Star of the Giants, a more mature audience. But it also, you know, because there's a children's show, so I think some kids were like, oh, I'm gonna read this manga.
So many people who do like Japanese like commentary or literary analysis are like, oh yeah, I read Devilman. I was in grade 2 at the time.
Technically, it was in their demographic. Yeah.
And then this is something from Gekiman where it was talking about Mao Dante being the first. This sci-fi, and then the magazine got discontinued, and how Toei Animation thought it'd be great anime, blah blah blah. We already said this.
The important part is that they say that this was the first time there was a demon as the protagonist. And if you watch anime and shounen, you probably have realized the amount of protagonists that have demon shit going on.
That's foreshadowing.
So, but before we get into that, speed run of pre-Devilman shonen manga. So, a lot of pre-wartime manga was influenced, you know, by typical serialized American comics like Dorohedoro and Pankaru, and they were more episodic in nature. And as in the case of many things in manga, Tezuka came along and created Astro Boy, and was one of the first shonen manga to actually have a structured plot. Other shonens that were relevant in the development of Devilman would be Cyborg 09, which was by Ishinomori. Nagai was an assistant on Cyborg 09, and you can see a lot of the influence, particularly with Nagai's paneling. And one specific arc within Cyborg 09 called the Tenshi Hen, later the God War, would influence the overall outcome of Devilman, and Nagai realized later just how much it influenced him. And as I mentioned before, Ashita no Joe, just because, you know, it was a drama and drew a more mature audience. One that I don't think a lot of people do know is Geki no Tsukuraro, which helped put in a lot of yokai and helped the dark fantasy shonen genre, which Devilman, you know, popularized. Shameless School. Which is considered Nagai's first work, which is a very raunchy manga. Very, very raunchy. It is what he became known for. And it also introduced more sexual themes within manga. And then, of course, Girl High. This isn't necessarily like super influential. It's just Nagai later said that he realized that he reused a lot of the themes within Gorilla High, and Mondo and Neo were kind of the basis for Kira and Rio, and they were later put in the sequel to Devilman Violence Jack. And it was, a lot of it was influenced by Nagai's experience growing up in post-World War II Japan and living under the American occupation. And he also later admitted that he based Kira off of like kamikazes and, you know, being the general soldier and that sort of thing. And specifically, it was an experience where he was witnessing the Vietnam protests in Japan during 1968, 1969, but he was not able to do it because he was a manga assistant. And then he later said in an interview with Anno in 1997, he said it was like alerting people because, you know, at the time it was written, not a lot of people had realized, like a lot of who are like these, specifically the age of all main characters of Devilman, had not like experienced this sort of like, you know, wartime, and like everyone's getting used to it, and now everyone's Cold War, Vietnam, so like any war can happen at any time.
So, why is Devilman not widely known in the English sphere? It's this guy's fucking fault. Like Johnson from the Misfits was a Devilman tramp stamp.
Yeah, so this is, I have the Japanese logo there.
Yeah, it's a tramp stamp.
Yeah.
So the Shin Devilman shorts, or like side stories, were a series of side stories published in 1995 to 96, in 3 issues by Erotic Comics, which were owned by Danzig, who is a huge fan, evidently, of various manga, and tried to have a translation thing, like, company. The thing is, it did a horrible job, like, really, really pretty bad. Nagai apparently did not see the final version of these translations until after the last one had been finished. And this also came after a previous attempt by Nagai to self-publish the first volume of the manga in English for the American market, but for some reason it just didn't work. And basically this was kind of the last straw in him giving up on trying to publish Devilman in the English market until 2018.
Here's some panels from the Misfits guy's translation. He also colored it, and it looks very ugly.
They had nostrils. Why?
Okay, so this is a plot summary really fast of Devilman if you've never read it or seen it.
So Devilman is about a high school student named Akira Fudo who gains the ability to transform into a demon after his friend from childhood, Asuka, mysteriously returns and will kill demons in Armageddon. He goes on to defeat various demons such as Awo, Gelor, Sirene, Jinmin, and tries to conceal the truth from the Makimuras, the family he's living with. Then, suddenly, the lead general of the demons, Xenon, attacks and wreaks havoc upon the world and basically starts the apocalypse. And throughout it, Akira discovers Ryo's true identity, which is Satan. He, in turn, reveals Akira's identity as Devilman, which gets Miki and her family murdered. And at the end of it all, we learned that Satan actually fell from grace while trying to protect the demons from God's wrath, and upon learning to, kill them all.
God was going to genocide them all.
Yeah, that's not good. So he won the war and sealed himself within the ice, and then would later come on and finish the job. But when he froze from the ice, he discovered there were humans, and he wanted to take them out. So Akira declares that he will not fight Satan, despite.
He will.
He will fight Satan, and despite neither of them actually wanting to kill one another because they're in love.
Yeah.
And then Satan wins the war, but the earth is completely destroyed and Akira dies. Yeah. And then Nagai would make 50 billion sequels and spin-offs.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the characters now. So this is like just some panels from Devilman where he talks about like his thought process when he was making Akira. He wanted him to be weak-spirited because he would be like a horror protagonist, and also like to make the difference between him pre and prior Devilmanification more stark. He was based on like American comic book heroes like Spider-Man and Batman, because when he was working with Toei Animation, they wanted to make a kid's superhero thing, and so he initially designed it like that, and then when he went to make the manga, he intentionally made the Devilman form much more like demonic and freaky. So Akira also differed a lot from shounen, like fantasy shounen protagonist specifically, in that he wasn't like born special and he wasn't like an experiment. He was just an average kid who gained superpowers. And an important theme in Devilman that like kind of trickles through a lot of the things that it inspired is like anti-war theming, even just like Evangelion as a whole. If you think about that, like it's a lot of, it's something that I think really resonated with the people who read Devilman. And Akira is primarily motivated by protecting his loved ones. And he doesn't really think in like a super large scale. It's mostly that he's like, he cares about the people around him, and he's doing it for the sake of protecting instead of like philosophical anything. I don't know.
Yeah, it's more like personal like connections rather than a greater like a desire
greater
to be,
good.
like a hero for humanity or
Also, there's a lot of gay shit. Like And Devilman was pretty influential for like the relationship between Akira and Ryu, and like the way that they them having the relationship that they did was like very important, and that's why a lot of things inspired by Devilman have gay shit in them. This is just some translations from Geki Man when they talk about like designing him. A lot of the executives wanted him to make Devilman look more like an American superhero, and like his idea was like putting the bat on his forehead, but then he like wanted to make him look more demonic for the magazine.
Alright, and now we get to my girl, Miki! So, Miki is interesting in, okay, if you read a lot of Nagai's works, the way women are written is contentious, because sometimes, like, sure he gives them roles, but also, oh my god, dude, shut up. so initially Miki is more the tougher of Akira, and I was probably done to be like, haha, here's Miki, look at this woman sort of thing, but it also made her personality more stark. One thing that does not come across a lot in a lot of adaptations is Miki's actually using a lot of samurai and yakuza speak, like specifically when she refers to herself. Of course she uses apache, but she uses more like stuff that samurai would use. She also like talks about watching yakuza movies, has a knife in her school bag, and wheels it against the delinquents. And she's more confident than she actually thinks in her ability that she can actually achieve. It looks like originally, as you can see, that Miki was the intended love interest, but in Geki Man, it seems that he was thinking like, well, can I make this sort of ending? Would Miki and Akira ending up together make any sort of sense? And well, as you can see, that's not necessarily the case. She potentially has influence from other women in comic books such as MJ Watson, Lois Lane, and Gwen Stacy. This is funny. I discovered that Gwen Stacy's on-page death in Spider-Man only occurred a few months before Miki's on-page death. I can't confirm if that was like influenced specifically, because I don't know if like it got translated over. I just think that's funny that Gwen Stacy died only a few months on page before that. And it is also possible that she is based off of Cyborg 09's Francis Arnold. And then here's Miki being a little hater.
Miki is so funny. I love her. These bottom two are my favorite.
Kill yourself!
Oh my god. Yeah.
And then here's Miki's pronouns, where she uses Bakushi, and then also uses Seisha and Onushi when talking to Kira, which is, I don't know that. In a lot of adaptations, just have her use Akashi. Let her talk like a samurai. And then here's the potential that she was influenced by Francis. And
then we get to Ryo. So, Evil Blonde, he wants to blow up the world, more or less. So, he's more distinctive, and thus characters based on him are some of the easiest ways of spotting whether a work has influence from Devilman or this whole line of shit. Because he wasn't really based on any kind of pre-existing archetypes. He was designed actually to die in the Sabbath. And actually, you know that shot where like Akira's like holding him and like screaming? He's dead there. He's actually, Nagai was like, oh fuck, what do I do? I don't have anyone to guide Akira around anymore because I killed Ryo last chapter, and his editor was like, killed him, nobody got that. Just like bring him back. So,
they told him bring him back, and he killed him, bring him back.
And he basically procrastinated on killing him so long because he kept needing him for like roles in the story that he decided that the best role for him would be for him to actually be the secret leader of the demons. He also he created his character after the initial phase of the anime had already been started, and decided that it would take too long to put him in, so he never was in the anime, and that's kind of what set the course as being so different between the two works.
They put in Kimura.
That is also that Kimura, they were like, let's put in a guy who looks like Ryo, but haha, he's actually a demon and betrays Akira, and that was part of the idea for that too. And yeah, he's designed to look very distinctive, but I want him to be cool, which is funny because he spends a lot of time sweating and screaming. According to Gekiman, because Viro's last name, like Asuka, means literally like flying bird. So this was a complete coincidence, but Nagai just was like, huh, his last name, picturing him with wings. Oh fuck, angels.
And Amon, he's not really much of a character in Devilman, and some adaptations have tried to expand on his character. I don't really care about him. But the idea that like some adaptations is like, oh, Amon's still alive, he could take over Kira, came from spin-off manga that was published in 2000, I believe. And sort of that kind of spurred on some people thinking that like they were fused together, like they could win out one over another. He's not really relevant, he's just there. But Toys Anime did actually like have Amon, in a sense, of possessing Kira. So Kira's just dead.
Okay. Hey. This is so. She's supposed to play the music, but I guess it's not right.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I did put the audio in here, but I'm not sure if it's working, so I appreciate the imagination.
Okay,
So Eva, as many people know, is a mecha anime created by Anno and was done by Expy, which ran from October 1995 to March 1996. It is one of the most influential anime of all time, and also kind of controversial. And it's known for, being a deconstruction, playing the trope straight of mecha. I know it's influenced by Gundam. I have not watched Gundam. I know I will. I've watched it. And it's commentary on, parental neglect, moral psyche, and teenage protagonist, and then the depiction of his eventual psychosexual breakdown.
It turns out that Ano is actually a huge fan of Go Nagai, and is like, kind of reveres him. It's really cool. And we love this quote. I'm just gonna read it. The finale of EVA will end up being like Devilman. That's what the story has to be. I guess I'm doing it unconsciously. EVA already completely contains the taste of Go Nagai. I can't wipe it away. I can no longer deny the impact of Devilman. If I were to deny it, I feel that I would end up completely overturning my own life. This is a beautiful quote. I love it.
So, Expys. We refer to characters that draw influence from Akira, Miki, and Ryo as Expys.
Amon.
I don't care about him. So technically, it's like we're stretching it a little bit, but it's easier to use in this context, and it's a simpler word, and most importantly, it's funny.
So let's look at the ways that Devilman is like Eva. Did I miss something?
No, it's
Okay. So the plot of Eva, imagery-wise, it obviously contains a lot of Judeo-Christian imagery, and like enemies being called angels. Angels' names coming from the Torah. Lots of just random stuff used kind of for foreboding, intimidating sense of visuals.
It's there for the aesthetic.
Yeah. One critical theme of it is the war between gods and humans on a cosmic scale. The quote is, when the very first meeting was held before the title had even been decided, Anno had already provided the theme of, quote-unquote, a battle between gods and humans. Both Anno and I, our generation, was influenced by Go Nagai, so making something on a grand scale meant it ended up like Devilman. The ending also of End of Evangelion of the two, just two people on a beach by water is a reference to, and by destroyed Earth is a reference to the ending of Devilman, and also then went on itself to become a major visual influence for further works. There's also prominent anti-war themes, which is also in the mecha genre in general, but it's here too.
Okay, so Akira versus Shinji. So Shinji is kind of based on Akira. So.
And I'll learn it now.
Hello. Hello? Okay. So he has dark hair, which is considered the default in Japan, and this is pretty common with a lot of characters based off of Akira's that they usually have dark hair. But the important bit is that they gain abilities through combining with a non-human entity. With EVA specifically, they're more biological than mechanical, and they have to like sync with the person who's driving them. And also like Devilman is the same type of entity that they're fighting against. So like, Akira becomes a devil in order to fight the demons. And then there's the extreme existential dread regarding the responsibility and mental toll that the EVA has on psyche. And this is present in Devilman, and it's also extremely important in the plot of EVA, that like doing this to your body and like engaging in getting in the robot is bad for your brain. Being a soldier going into war is not good on the psyche, and it destroys people and especially children. And here's this little quote that talks about like Shinji's loss of like his self-identity that's similar to Akira. So Nobi sees similarities between Devilman and Evangelion, that this is due to the fact that Shinji's mother is ultimately becomes a kind of angel. As a result, Shinji questions his self-identity. In the end, the foundations of human identity are overthrown. Anno says that the similarities to Devilman in the sense were unconscious. He noticed them afterwards. Evangelion follows the pattern of Ultraman and Devilman in the sense that an enemy is defeated, but the power of that enemy is absorbed. Human beings make a copy of the angels and then combine it with the human heart or mind.
Alright, then we get into color as a Ryo Expy. So this is he himself has stemmed off tons and tons of children. But so this is kind of where the like light-haired, mysterious, pretty boy comes in. Usually a new arrival shows up later in the plot, is like a transfer student, which kind of, or like color, it's not like a student, but he transferred into Nerve later. And he is the probably like, I don't know, most like
he's the most
love interest.
He's the most influential one.
He's a love interest. He's an angel since
everybody knows this guy.
Finding out that Kaoru is an angel and acting against Nerve, which is like taken as a betrayal by Shinji because he's been impersonating a regular human boy. And he has knowledge beyond that of the protagonist because he already knows what Seely's goal is when he sees like that it's actually a Lilith eternal dogma and they're sending him to cause an impact by,
plot.
I won't get too deep into that before the audience even knows like what he's talking about or why he chooses to do the things he does. Spending time as a human with Shinji or even just around people at all, he decides that he doesn't want to go through with this, though you can debate whether he would have or not before anyways. And Shinji only comes out alive because Kaoru chooses to die instead and asks for it to be by Shinji's hand. The confrontation inherently ends with one of them dead.
Alright, and now we get into the Miki Expy. Now, this is an interesting case because I'm pretty sure that they were the start of splitting Miki Expys into like two different women. So both are presented as potential love interests, and much like Miki was, and it didn't actually go down that route. So what's the thing with Asuka, and traditional things with a lot of Miki Expy's red color scheme, and she has the natural colored hair. She's very outspoken and aggressive, and a lot of Japanese fans actually theorize that Asuka's Eva getting speared was actually a reference to Miki's body getting speared towards the end of the manga. Rei is an interesting case because her design feels more Miki, but not much of the role, and also she dies in the cult for actions for the protagonist.
Amon vs. Unit 01. Unit 01's face was based on Amon specifically, or like, Akira's Devilman form, the eyes, which associates the protagonist with more demonic-looking creatures, as well as the general stature of the Eva and things like the teeth. It's kind of became like a broader interpretation of what an Amon can be, where you can have like psychological melding of two beings to count. And also,
it doesn't really have to go inside of your body.
yeah, and then also there is a quote confirming this from saying that when
It's a conversation between Anno and Gonagai.
yeah, to the point to make it an anti-hero, something which is scary. For that, Devilman is the perfect model. And when we look at his eyes, we also notice some influence from Maladante, which was the essentially person prototype.
The OG.
And then Crybaby also made a bunch of cinematic references back to Evangelion, which is
So, like, we had Devilman, and then we had Eva, and then Devilman copied Eva. So the cycle of stupidity is complete. Okay. So that is really cool. What if it happens twice? It's happened a lot.
this is not even near everything we know of. This is just what we're putting up here that we're considering even talking about in this panel.
Yeah.
From this point forward, we are going to be spoiling a whole bunch of stuff.
I spent a very long time making this graph by hand. Please appreciate it. It's color-coded. Okay. So, if you ever wondered why all your media has white-haired gay boys with mental problems and god powers, now you know. Here's a bit longest figures of Guillermo del Toro. We all steal from Go Nagai. Here's like
Rock Zombie, Supercharger Heaven,
Yeah.
and then here's him performing the song with the clips from the OVA. And then,
it's the Devilman hand. So they made this right when Crybaby came out, and they compiled a bunch of works that are believed to be influenced by Devilman, and each one is like a finger.
We have some slides explaining it. It came along with an essay or an article that was titled "Without Devilman, Could There Have Been No Evangelion? Unraveling Cultural History," which was an interview with Yu Ebihara, who it's on the next slide actually. Is a lecturer at certain universities and does talks to critique, etc. But basically he's an actual scholar of this kind of adjacent shit in Japan. So he repeatedly emphasizes the importance of Devilman, calling it a monument that established Japanese cultural history. And this hand consists of works that Ebihara considers to be believed by, or may have been influenced by Devilman, sorted into 6 categories that make up different parts of the hand. Not all works have been clearly divided, so some are just in random places that they fit in multiple categories, they've just been put in one of them. And it includes all works that he was unsure of whether or not to include, so it may not be entirely correct. This also doesn't include ones that are absolutely influenced by Devilman, such as Yu-Gi-Oh! And Madoka. So it's virtually impossible to get everything. So the rest is works by Nagai that were
were influential specifically to Devilman, such
Yeah.
as Maladante, and then Cyborg 09, and as we mentioned,
It's just old stuff that he's like.
yeah.
Yeah, that's just legitimate spin-offs and sequels. Now we'll get into kind of the more interesting stuff, which is the Index Finger, which is a fantastical setting. These are completely fictional worlds in which strange beings grow stronger by fighting and killing each other. Worldviews, battles, and grotesque people/things and violence are also due to the fantasy aspect. This pre-humanity worldview is written based on pseudo-historical things like how Ryo gets into this was Earth before humans and the demons were here, kind of using pseudo-historical evidence. And by increasing the awareness of this type of setting, Devilman can be seen as the original, as the progenitor of Japanese dark fantasy. The middle finger, real-world settings plus supernatural abilities. These are works that are set in the real world with the addition of unreal elements. So, shonen readers at the time, before Devilman, before the age was raised by the dramatic works that came just slightly before it, were mostly expected to be children. So detailed explanations about worldviews or how powers worked, or things like commentary on actual events were not considered to be necessary because they figured that kids just wouldn't care. So these are protagonists now who once led ordinary lives, becoming gradually entangled in violent battles with strange or grotesque beings. These also deal with the relations of these beings in a mostly real world. And before they know it, the way that the protagonist views the world or the world itself is inherently changed. This is a now standard plot development in a lot of shounen and seinen, and this aspect was particularly impactful on the following generation after Nagai. So this is biblical mythological apocalyptic motifs, setting combining religion and sci-fi versus the view of morality/value system by putting demonic anti-heroes as protagonists and otherwise aligning protagonists with demons and antagonists with angels. The concept has been important to Nagai in previous works as well, and was kind of like completed with Devilman. One large reason for why Devilman could be called an epoch of manga, according to to use Ebihara's words in translation, is because of daring to use media from scripture, which is kind of blasphemous, even if Christianity isn't like a majority religion in Japan. And bringing in the spirit world and underworld was also a novel idea. Various works had included demons prior to Devilman, but it was the first to use demons that were clearly defined in a sci-fi fashion, just incorporated these things in a more detailed form. Starting with Fujiko Fushio's works, these elements had been used in manga before, so this might have also had connections to the fact that Nagai started as a mangaka. But they hadn't been used in actual sci-fi shonen before. And then this is just works by one of his previous assistants.
Tragically passed away in 2006.
Rest in peace. So hopefully you don't have to get into that. Also, Ebihara knows particularly direct visual influence on works like Zenman, Tokyo Ghoul, and Ajin, and extremely large influence on future generations' use of demonic and dark hero characters.
Okay, so
Get into the real.
so now we're going to talk about things that kind of define Expys as we start getting into everything. So across the board, so these are not true of every single Akira. One Akira may have 2, 3, 4 of these traits. It's just like these are things that once you look at the totality of all of them, these are like where the circles start to converge. So they're usually the protagonists, not always, but usually. Usually have dark hair. The most common hair colors that they have, if they don't have black hair, is orange or blonde. But if this is the case, their Ryu will almost always have dark hair instead. They're usually initially weak or painfully average, and then they start out an enthusiastic soft boy and then become hardened by the horrors, or they start like antisocial assholes and have to learn how to be a pleasant person. They gain abilities by fusing with another entity or awakening their ultra instinct or something. Usually it's like they fuse with something else outside of them, but sometimes they unlock it from inside themselves and become the supernatural. It's the thing like seinen from JoJo. They usually grapple with becoming inhuman in some way, or they're scared by their inner demons, or they have depression. They're usually representative of the human drive to fight for those that you hold dear, the I fight for my friends type of guy. And they really want to protect people close to them, and it's contrasted with Ryu, who is usually broadly obsessed with justice, even at the cost of those close to them. So that's usually where they butt heads the most. They're usually the brawn to the Ryo's brain. Not always, but usually like they're the ones that's beating everyone up, and the Ryo's the ones doing all the planning, the scheming, and often sub in parentheses textually in love with the Ryo. The motifs that are most common are demons, knights, beasts, fire, and headphones. And the common colors are black, green, orange, and red.
And now here are the common Miki Expy traits. So usually they're like a childhood friend of the protagonist, or they're just like a really close friend, and they always have short, brown, bobbed hair.
It's so funny.
And
or bombed hair in another sense.
or they're either sometimes the love interest, or there's kind of they're very bossy and more assertive than the Akira to contrast them. Usually they'll also be associated with witch imagery or weird experiments. And I will say Miki doesn't get fridge, but I'm just using it as
It's a funny word.
it's funnier to say. And usually they get fridge as like a call to action for the protagonist. And sometimes because Miki started this whole trend and often they are associated with cats like Asuka, Nanami, Shiki, Power, and I just from Persona 3 and Crybaby gave Miki a cat.
Yeah.
And the other traits is sometimes they'll be split into two different girls, as we saw with Asuka and Rei, Kyoko and Sayaka. And there's also, sometimes they'll have the tsundere shit going on just because that comes from Asuka. And usually the two Mikis will be like romantically involved. And as
They got something gay going on.
and then Crybaby kind of did that. So.
Now we get into the doings. They're often deuteragonists or antagonists, or both. Light-haired pretty boy, often with other feminine traits, or are like ambiguous gender-wise. Girls often fawn over them, I think probably mainly to show the audience that they are attractive, because they're not interested back. They're often a friend, childhood friend often, or transfer student, and they are usually like, with the transfer student, they have a theme of being somewhat foreign. Like often they're either, they're transferring in from another place, or they're mixed race, or they're entirely from a different country. They have some sort of like visual, thing that makes them very notable, such as the light hair. They're usually a narrative foil to the protagonist, often subtextually, or just explicitly in love with the protagonist. Memory loss is another big one.
A lot of times they forget that they're evil and then remember.
They're often not human clothes, impersonating or body snatching. And they're an angel or have the angel motifs. Sometimes demonic instead, but
Sometimes they're both.
yeah. Both an ally and antagonist at different points throughout the story through which they stand. Or where they stand is unclear. They also typically betray the protagonist or turn against them, either lie the whole time, change after regaining their memories, or believe that acting against the protagonist is in their best interest whether they like it or not. Thematically, they represent justice or other kinds of higher ideals that are often flawed, but they're more interested with that than, it's not to say that there aren't ones that are primarily motivated by protecting those who are close to them, but they have more concern with this than the Hashira does. They sometimes are intermediary antagonists to obscures the true villain's existence. For example, how Ryo is the is kind of the false antagonist because the true antagonist is God, because God is the one that kind of set all this shit into motion. Their time loops often come in. They have more information or know what's actually going on further than what the audience or the protagonist are aware of. They may serve a guiding role, but often withhold vital information. From Powder, there has been copious piano motifs that have come out, especially since 2013, let's say, when 3.0 dropped. And they often have colors gold, blue, gray, black, purple, white. They also will shoot you. And also, monster forms, especially ones with multiple wings.
They got to sing gaily.
They have. This is all by Trigger and Cars. It's the same studio as. There's other general there's.
I usually just post the creative images as I found them onto this, and then I thought it was funnier if I left it like that. And then they also do this all the time. I love this pose. It's like a 70% chance if two guys are doing this pose in official art, the Ryu Akira.
Shout out to my friend who produced half of these images just after being asked on hand yesterday.
She had them on hand.
Here's another pretty graphic I made.
And then here's Mons.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I forget more. So he's just a separate entity that the protagonist fuses with to gain powers, and the fusion is either mental, physical, or both, and can remain just like some guy in like their mind palace. So, and then like sometimes they can become friends, like the Night-Tailed Fox and Naruto, and usually they'll be like the same species of whatever entity that the Akira Expy is fighting. But in recent times, the original Amon did not obviously retain his memories, but later people who used the Amon's concept did keep it in there, such as, Yami, Sakuna, Yoru, Migi, and Rize, and a lot of the times they're associated with demons, monsters, and spirits, and the colors are typically red, black, and purple. So in the general plot beats of typically Devilman influenced stories is weak loser gets fused with monster and becomes awesome. And then there's some random gay guy who's blonde shows up and he's the new transfer student, or perhaps the child with his friend, stranger. And they're the guy to the Akira, like, oh, I know all this shit, I can help you, blah blah blah. And now the protagonist is awesome and cool. I like being a weak loser.
He has existential dread.
Yeah. And then what happens? And now, oh guys, guess what? The evil guy is evil, and he wants to blow up the world.
He remembered that he wanted.
Yeah, he remembered. And it's like some awakening of their true villain's form, and it gives them purpose. But usually they forget it for some reason. Obviously, like they to infiltrate their society. And then, guess what? The evil gay blonde guy is the twist villain, and also Satan.
Literally Satan.
But also in love with the protagonist. This will be A-okay, guys. And then there's like some ancient war that comes up, and then the mysterious gay blonde guy starts again, and then in the process, the girl gets fridged. And then, oh my god, Akira Expy gets seen. So now there's a clash of ideals between the Akira Expy and the real Expy, and shit blows up, and then they learn the true meaning of friendship.
The only way that the world doesn't get blown up is if the Akira and the emotionally or literally kiss.
Yeah, and if they don't, either one or the other dies. Oh my god, very great!
Sometimes they do kiss and one still dies, but
And then it's a metaphor for how we live in a society.
Okay, so these are some voice actors that commonly voice act Ryo's or Akira's, and I have color coded it for you. And shout out to Akira Ishida, he is doing work.
I wonder how he feels about having voiced like some random guy in a one-off episode in like 1990.
Gets murdered instantly.
Yeah, he dies within that episode, and then just the rest.
Has to voice act the gay white-haired guys for the entire rest of his life. Okay, so let's get into the crash course. So we're going to start going through everything on this sheet. So the spoilers for everything that you have ever loved, and probably may love in the future.
We know Persona 2 is a Devilman thing, but none of us have.
This isn't everything. This is just the shit that we know enough about to talk about, and could fit on the slides. We have a lot of slides. We might skip through some stuff, but we're going to try to get through as much of it as possible. Also, our beloved panelist Amber could not be with us tonight, and she's the one that wrote all of the Berserk stuff.
She's not dead, she's just like...
She's not dead, but yeah. So,
she's intense.
And she wrote her heart out for the Berserk part, so we're going to try our best with it. There's a lot of shit here. So, yeah.
So Berserk is a seinen manga that started in August 25th, 1989, that takes place in a fictional medieval dark fantasy setting, and was written by the late Kentaro Miura. According to Miura, much of his influence with Berserk comes from the Go Nagai works of Devilman, everyone's pointing out, and Violence Jack, which is also hardly regarded as being influential in its own right, and other manga such as Mr. North Star, Kazaki Uta, all this.
To be clear, Violence Jack is a sequel to Devilman. It's just had two optional sequels, but don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Choose your own adventure. Yeah. So here's some interviews where Mira talks about Devilman being an influence on him, or just like other Go Nagai works, and like how they influenced his work. And then here is the how Guts is like the Akira Expy. So he's the protagonist, he has dark hair, and then he has to grapple with this more demonic version of himself that like manifests like physically and emotionally as this like huge demonic dog.
That's his persona.
And so he doesn't have an Amon per se, but he does have this big demon that he has to grapple with. And like below here in the right, we have this picture of Akira also like grappling with his inner demons, so to speak, and like how that emotionally affects him as he has to continue fighting this war that, yeah. So, and he also has a special relationship with Griffith, but we'll get into that later. And then here's just some pictures comparing Guts and Akira. And like Guts also gets this armor, it's got like Berserk armor, and like transforms after he puts it on to like reflect, like being like a similar shape to his like bestial like darkness, and it's similar to like Akira transforming into a demon. And then here's some more stuff, and this is like Guts like losing his mind during the eclipse versus Akira losing his mind after he finds out that Miki was murdered.
So you get Griffith, deuteragonist, white-haired, friends with them, narrative with the Guts, and they kind of have like they mirror each other in a lot of ways, where they center around similar kinds of concerned about opposite ends of ideologies or such, and have that special relationship. He has a ton of angel motifs that you can see from things like his ideas art. And he is born in a human, but essentially becomes a godlike demon and kills people that he loves in pursuit of his goals. Here's just
this man did everything wrong.
everything.
Nothing wrong! No!
Oh my god.
So sex just gotta be gay and crimes.
There are better ones. So yeah, similar relationships to the series, where both Rio and Griffith are confronted with truths that shape their understanding of the world. For Griffith, it's led him to descend into hellish madness and fully devoted himself to making his dream become a reality. This choice leads to the deaths of every member of the band of Hawk except for Guts and Casca.
And our Miki Expy is Casca. She's the deuteragonist, and her own story, the typical short brown hair. She's close with the protagonist, have her love interest, very strong-willed, capable of defending herself. She doesn't necessarily die like Miki does, but gets horribly traumatized instead, and that serves as the call to action. So, mentioned before, Miki are both capable of defending themselves. And Miki's is more like a gag that she really just wants to save Akira, but obviously she's never opposed to fighting if she has to. And Casca's shown in many fights that she's very skilled and resourceful, and Miki too, and she utilizes weapons and impromptu items as well. And as many people know, Miki perishes in the mob and gets removed from her home, blah blah blah, and the stuff that happens.
Her head gets removed from her body.
and that happened with Casca. There's a horribly traumatic moment, though, and she comes out alive, but like we said, she gets traumatized, and it's not, pleasant, and it's the call to action to the protagonist, and both characters have to fight for their lives, and then
It's like this image of like these women being like trapped in a space and like fighting for their lives and like trying to get out, but neither of them actually are able to do it.
it's exhausting. And then there's a couple like demon Expys, there's grotesque creatures.
Similarly in Berserk as they do in Devilman.
Yeah, and the main protagonist is being hunted by them, and these creatures are accompanying the main antagonist, and sometimes these creatures are humans that either run into becoming one, or chose to become one, and the hostiles are humans who willingly get humanity. And some of these creatures are under the leadership of the main antagonist, who Expy, who's likened to their god or king. And
Or more of those dudes.
Yeah.
More than, and in Devilman, demons are the ancient prehistoric creatures that want to rid the world of humans because they had it first. And there are a few select humans who are able to merge with demons and all that. And apostles are similar to Devilman, both retain their humanity with human forms. However, Devilman didn't choose to merge with a demon, and apostles chose to willingly. The key difference is that Devilmen are a metaphor for young people getting drafted into war. Apostles are people who will literally destroy all their relationships just to have power.
It's really interesting to me how similar the systems are between apostles and demons in Berserk and Devilman. They're basically exactly the same, and I think that's cool. And now you get to see some collages that Amber made of Griffin and Gus being gay. I hope that you enjoy that. Here's the second one. I love the image of, are you homo? Is how you question. Yeah. She's here in our hearts. Okay.
Next up, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I think we probably don't have to introduce all these works that we go through just for the sake of time.
You know what JoJo is.
Yeah. So it kind of mainly concerns the setup of the beginning of part 1, though there are other ways that this kind of inspiration continues throughout the series. It mainly centers on that Jonathan and Dio mirror like the designs for antagonist, protagonist of Ryo and Akira, and also things are kind of triggered at the start by the discovery of a stone mask. So Jonathan, it has the protagonist, our character, nice way met Dio. The kids initially kind of gets his shifty magic wand, gets magic powers that makes him stronger, and then gets killed by Dio.
Also, he gets beheaded. That's a trend among Devilman things, is beheading.
Just
I hate when that happens.
And then there's a second one.
yeah, JoJo kind of takes up the
Getting possessed by an evil spirit.
yeah, because when he first gets Star Platinum, he's like, I'm possessed by an evil ghost, and I need to sit in this jail cell.
He's super freaked out about it. Yeah.
And so he's kind of the one who, his goals are to save his loved ones, and he's the one who ultimately goes out and defeats Dio using a power that is of the same type as the one that Dio has. Now we get into Dio, long secretly evil, body snatching, kills Jonathan, but on purpose. Starts off human and becomes a vampire because he wants to transcend humanity and has issues.
And also, by the way, there's a Devilman spin-off where Ryo's a vampire. It's not worth go read it.
Don't read it, but
It exists.
Yeah, just appreciate that it exists. And a lot of the time, actors also get put with wolf or werewolf and shit, just to match that. So Dio's ultimate goal was kind of to completely change the world to his liking, which involves kind of destroying it as well. And so he dies before because reality, but Kuchi kind of takes over that, and they're very heterosexual together. This is totally straight behavior.
Okay, rapid fire through the general plot beats. So, blonde guy gets revealed evil. He becomes an immortal godlike being. He kills the protagonist. Body snaps his protagonist. Different protagonist gets possessed with magic power. Fights evil blonde guy, and then the world explodes.
Yay!
Just like in Devilman. But JoJo is important, especially as far as Amans go, because previous to stands kind of existing, Amans were very often very physical things, you physically merge with an outside entity and then transform into it, whereas stands come from inside you, the spirits that represent you, and you fight with them, and it's an interesting interpretation of Aman, and then also greatly inspired what Amans could be or look like in the future. So let's talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! I love Yu-Gi-Oh! So it was it's a manga by the late
'Kazuki Takahashi, rest in peace, King, I love you.
So it's the story of Yugi. If you haven't read the season 0 part of the manga, you really need to. It's so good. So Yugi gets possessed by an evil spirit. And so here's an interview from Takahashi where he talks about Devilman being a huge inspiration for him. When he was a kid, he used to sit in front of the TV and draw zingers. Devilman, and I think that's adorable. He also really likes JoJo and Dragon Ball.
As you all watch.
So the way that Yugi is Akira is a protagonist, weak little guy who gets bullied, kind of tired nearly to a fault. He gets possessed by a morally dubious spirit in order to combat bullies. And now Yugi's appearance is taken from Akira's pre and post Devilmanification because before Akira got Devilmanified, he was 5'8" and kind of sad, and then afterwards he grows 15 centimeters and starts looking really angry, and he gets drawn to the more the under eye. He's got the eyelashes underneath his eyes, and Yugi is drawn the exact same way with the Tem, and I think that's cool. This is also another quote I have up on the screen. Just says that JoJo influenced a lot of the light and dark themes, and that he was really inspired by the darkness in JoJo. So then here's so Bakura is the Rio in Yu-Gi-Oh! And first off, he's literally named Rio. He's usually called Bakura, but his first name is Rio. So he's the mysterious transfer student, and he becomes friends with. He's bullied for being too feminine. He's had. There's literally multiple illustrations of women following him around, which is very funny because he's you can see in that picture, he's looking behind him, he's wants to hang out with those guys, he just does not want to be there. So he's possessed by the evil spirit, and he doesn't remember anything when the spirit takes over, and so he suffers from constant amnesia. And then Yami Bakura, who's the actual evil guy, white-haired evil guy who wants to blow up the world. The Millennium Ring has the spirit of Zork Necrophades inside of it, which is the silliest name I've ever heard. And then the spirit's called Yami Bakura, or Dark Bakura. And in the early parts of the manga, he masquerades as Yugi's friend. So it's that trope of can I trust him? Should I not trust him? I want to be his friend, but I don't know if I should. And he literally dresses exactly like him. It's so funny how much this character is literally just Ryo. It's so funny, Ryo.
My old friend Ryo.
And then when he changes between personalities, his hair grows in little wings, and it's very similar to Satan's head wings, but also they are kind of shaped almost exactly like Devilman's wings, which I think is interesting. And there's also change of heart, just angel motif stuff, also representative of the light and dark themes in Yu-Gi-Oh! And also Devilman, JoJo, etc. And as far as miscellaneous plot details, Ancient War Part 2 Electric Boogaloo, in Devilman, the whole thing is relitigating a war that happened years ago, and this is relitigating a war that happened 5,000 years ago. So, and then whereas in Devilman, the evil was sealed away in ice and then melted later, here the evil got sealed away in the Millennium items and then got released later.
All right, Naruto speedrun.
Questions and everything is really hard, so hopefully we can have questions or stuff at the end. So these will all be available to you.
Alright, so Akira, the Naruto's Akira Expy starts off weak, loser, blah blah blah, confused with the demon. Overall positive, upbeat personality. He kind of looks like Ryo though. Sasuke's Ryo Expy, lots of magic shit going on. Floats the protagonist. Motivated by wet vengeance, ancient motif, soccer's pink color scheme, bob, headband. And also, the ending of Naruto is
literally shot for shot. This is
so this stuff on the next page.
This is plagiarism.
Stop. There's more. It's a rip-off, it's a rip-off.
Yeah, it's nuts. Oh my god.
Yeah.
The World Ends With You is one of the best games ever. Play it.
It's on the list of greatest video games of all time.
I'm so obsessed with this game. I'm saying this like I played it as an adult. It holds up. Like it's for the first time. It's very like it's very steeped in soul kind of stuff. He tells the story of Nagai Sakuraba, who is our Akira Expy. He's already like so.
This one's orange.
You know, the whole just general bits of like ordinary guy gains powers, makes friends, has gay shit going on, and specifically takes certain motifs from Shin. And then we get into this bitch. This is
God, she will kill you.
Some may say the white hair gay angel body looks a little possible. Takes on all these roles in some most literal ways. Gay, twink cannot be understated. Gay, twink. Friends, I'm gay for the record, but it doesn't he befriends protagonist and secretly actually is the ultimate like villain.
He's secretly an evil
guy. He sacrifices himself to get himself out of a situation where I could potentially find out his real identity, which is the funniest way he could have possibly done that, and then guides the protagonist around for his own ends, shoots the protagonist with a gun. He is actually now like, you know, the ultimate leader of this sort of underground world of spirits and shit. And fortunately, he's introduced as an ally, later reveals to be an antagonist. Unfortunately for everyone, he's able to see reason, and he can kind of revert the majority of the damage.
He's like the good end of the original Devilman.
You know, he has the whole justice motif of passing judgment on the people of Shibuya because he believes that they're not worthy of being alive and are going to like poison the rest of the world if they are allowed to continue existing. And this also ties into how he himself is as a person and whether he's able to change as well, and that becomes involved with that. He also has spirit injury that comes from Karu. Miki Expy, so Shiki Miki come on. Brown bobbed haircut when she's in her like actual in her like
And when she's in her real body.
Neku's friend, you know, she kind of gets semi-British. She gets better. Her soul is like held as like collateral for Neku to continue playing this game. Association with Cats, which quoted.
Alright, Dorohedoro, one of my favorite ones of all time. So, it was written by Kyo Higashio, which ran from 2000 to 2018. It's a story about two people, Nikaido and Kaiman, who are trying to figure out who changed Kaiman's head into a lizard. It turns out that it's actually more complicated, and there's this evil entity that possessed Kaiman, and is trying to make him destroy all the sorcerers in another world. This was influenced by Dragon Ball and Berserk. But when I was like pulling stuff for this specifically, I realized just how much it is influenced by Devilman. Our Akira Expy is Kaiman, Aikawa Kai Kai. He has identity issues and draws a lot of influence from Guts. Nikaido is actually the origin of both Chainsaw Man and Dandadan, combining the Miki and Ryo role into one. Nikaido actually draws a lot of influence from Casca, but she is blonde, a part of the same species that the Akira Expy is trying to kill, and hides this from the Akira Expy. Now, our Mon Expy is a weird one. Hole does possess Kaiman and creates all evil Kai, and Kai actually has weird markings after being possessed by Hole, and this was a huge influence on Chainsaw Man, and there's a woman named Asuka who has a bat mask.
They really like the eye markings on Devilman's design. People love ripping that off.
And then when Nikaido becomes the devil later on, straight up double form is Akira's double form.
Okay, so there's another section right after, and it's gonna like blast through it a little bit. So Death Note, you know what Death Note is. So Light is a Ryu. He has like his hair is like brown, but it's way lighter than L's to like contrast. He like pretends to be friends with L, but like also, you know, is secretly evil. That's his whole thing, is that the evilness is a secret.
It's kind of interesting to think Light is the only instance of a real being the protagonist except for Code ES, which is Lelouch. Lelouch is an Expy of Light.
So this has a lot of religious imagery, gay shit going on with so he's interesting because he doesn't get possessed by the demon. The demon just follows him around, which is funny.
He's here for a laugh.
Yeah. So L is he has messy black hair. He's kind of a loser, even if he's like not weak. He's a foil for Light. It's contrasted with Light that he's like more pure heart, whereas Light is not. So and then Obata has said that the dark circles underneath L's eyes are based on Devilman's design, which they really like ripping that off.
Just look at these. I didn't know that shiny colors were like this until I was pulling images for slides, and I ran it. I was like, what the fuck's and then I'm not going to go into in details because there's another hero in the series that is more prominent.
But he's there.
This is also something here. And so N, he takes a large number of reads from
it's all of them, basically.
all of this, and then also if we keep going, then he is
It's such a good picture.
I love that edit. And also he does
the Claro sit multiple
I
times.
lost my mind.
We covered up Shinji because this is in the bathroom.
Yeah.
This art is also but so he also draws a lot of things from color, and this is what he probably more notably gets picked up on by, or what more notably gets picked up on by English fans, because color is the one that people are actually familiar with more. But he does have some distinct traits that are added on to the hero types. And this killed me. In Pokemon Generations, he's voiced by Akira Ishida, who is Color's voice actor during this, and tries to kill him with Cure, and he gets this beam of light across his throat. And I cannot fucking believe this. And then this is a whole other mess, which I like to call the retroactive commodification of N, which is...
I remember this slide said radioactive commodification. That's so funny.
So a number of specifically the designs Zoroark has a lot of resemblances to Kamana, both in description and type.
It's kind of conspiracy.
And then, he also has a kind of wild number of sprites in Masters that line up with one of his sprites. They also, Hinata isn't otherwise really Hilbert isn't otherwise really similar, but this feels pointed after
After all things. Yeah.
Also, they have a reunion on each, which,
So, Shin Megami Tensei and Persona, they do this all the time. So here's a really, here's a quote from one of the lead designers for the demons. He's been working on Shin Megami Tensei since even before it was Shin Megami Tensei. He worked on Megami Tensei 2 in 1990. He's talked about Devilman a lot. So really quick, he was just like some one of the developers talking in an interview where he just talks about a couple of the Expys. And so the demi-theme concept of him is a human that awakens to superhuman powers. And he's like a demon, but he's not. And the image of a human that has evolved by anyone put horns or wings on him. It's like the image of a half. And then here's Lucifer. It's basically literally Satan. Like if we look over here, it's the same guy. And then let's get into Persona 3, which is the game I know way more about. So Persona 3 is obviously a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei, but people use the demons as personas, which is basically exactly like Sans and JoJo, so you can change them. The protagonist of Persona 3 is the Akira, orphaned at a young age. Akira's parents are dead. And then he can use infinite personas. He can use all of them, which kind of takes this. Since everyone can use a persona, he wouldn't be special if he could only use one, so he can use all of them. And then he befriends Ryoji, who's Ryo, spoiler. And then at the end he sacrifices himself and dies. And then Ryo is Ryoji is the Ryo. His name is Ryoji. He doesn't have white hair though, unfortunately. So he has like amnesia a couple times. Like first he's like a child, and he manifests as a child inside of Minato, and he doesn't remember anything. And then he gets all of his memories back, and he ejects himself from Minato's body, and then forgets everything again. And he's like a foil to Minato. And he doesn't remember that he's like Satan and has to blow up the world, and then he does, and then he's really sad about it because he doesn't want to, but he has to. And then here's some stuff where they just straight rip scenes from EVA again. And then, yeah.
And then we get to Persona 5. For the time that we have left, I think we should just play the video that we have of this. So, because you can go back and look at all this stuff later. There's a bunch of shit.
So the awakening scene for the protagonist from Persona 5's like getting his I wish that was sound it's like straight up ripped from it's like shot for shot Akira becoming Devilman.
I noticed this like, I don't know, maybe like a year or so ago, and this kind of...
I wonder they call him Akira.
Yeah, his name is literally Akira. Yeah, in the manga. Also, this shot is no, it's fun. The hand shot is so egregious to me, like it's no.
Here, just wait for the last one.
It's literally the same. It's so funny.
I think we have... Yeah. So then we'll see if that changes.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean...
We're gonna jump to Chainsaw Man real quick because we're running out of time.
And then hopefully we can take a few questions before we get kicked out of the room.
Also, sorry, Lelouch was supposed to have white hair, and then they took it out because they thought it was less attractive, and I will never stop being mad about this, because he is a Rio, and he's supposed to have white hair, and he's going to have white hair, and now he doesn't. I'm mad about it. Still. And, okay.
Alright. Oh, shoot.
Now,
you know, just a Chainsaw Man. We have to do right.
Madoka has in the notes, sorry, many other things. You can speak through
Okay, so Chainsaw Man, ongoing manga by Katsuki Fujimoto. I think the title alone should tell you about the Devilman influence. Nagai refuses a very powerful entity that is a part of the creatures he's meant to defeat, and they're devils. The world could potentially be ending. Obviously, Denji is the Akira Expy. It's very possible he draws influence from Shinji too. Also, Mitaka is 100% a girl to Shinji. Our Rio and Miki Expy is an interesting case. Taking the note from Dorohedoro, we have a smash together Rio and Miki. Makima is a Rio and a Miki role. Her counterpart in part 2 feels more Miki-ish to me. Amon Expy is Kuzuchita. He's a little guy, he's my friend. Kinda did the trauma door thing in Dorohedoro. Be for real. And then the more recent Devilman influence,
Makima literally has
and there's spoilers from last
painting of like
Oh yeah.
loser
Close your eyes if you don't want to.
Yeah, and there's straight up a reference to the Jinjin fight.
Also,
Okay, It's passing out. So also this is at the bottom of this you can see that
Fujimoto calls Chainsaw Man a Dorohedoro and Jujutsu Kaisen ripoff, and then our friend let us use this meme. Oh, sorry. All right,
yeah.
thank you.
So we have made a little bluesky account, and we're going to post the link to be able to look at the slides if you'd like. So if you want to, we have not posted it yet, but before the end of the day, we will put it there and you can check out.